Hey, I'm Natalie Spano, class of 2026. Welcome to the Rambler Podcast.
And I'm Davin Friedman, class of 2026. Before you dive into this episode, we wanted to share a quick message with you.
At Cathedral Prep, every opportunity we have in the classroom, on the field, and beyond is made stronger by the Fund for Excellence.
This fund supports tuition assistance, academic programs, athletics, and faith formation. Everything that makes prep.
When you give, you help students like us thrive.
Please make your impact today by visiting www.cathedralprep.com/give.
Thank you for believing in us.
Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 89 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. And on this episode, we're excited to have Matt Wachter on as a guest. Matt graduated from Cathedral Prep in 2003, and he is a nationally recognized leader in development finance and early stage technology investment. Matt currently serves as CFO and General Counsel at Carnegie Foundry, where he helps guide strategy and drive investment in the region's world-renowned robotics and AI industry. His work connects financial expertise with innovation, fueling economic growth, and opening new opportunities in emerging technologies. Before joining Carnegie Foundry, Matt was a founding executive of the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, where he played a pivotal role in raising over $100 million and closing major real estate projects during the height of the pandemic. No small feat. His leadership has been highlighted by Forbes, the White House, and the Council of Development Finance Agency, and he's frequently invited to speak nationally on transformational strategies for community revitalization and public-private partnerships. Earlier in his career, Matt practiced law with McDonald Illig and the Knox Law Firm, followed by a period in New York City and Philadelphia. Matt also serves as the chair of the Erie Criz Authority, and outside of his professional work, he and his wife Angela are raising 3 children, 2 boys and girls, and I like the little footnote here, all future Ramblers in Erie. With a career that spans law, finance, and development, Matt brings a unique insight into how big ideas get funded and how communities can thrive when business, technology, and leadership all come together. So we're excited to have him on the podcast today. Matt, welcome.
Wow, who wrote that? That was fancy. I like it. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I really appreciate you coming on. I think with the world nowadays, with all the talk of AI, technology, business development, there's a lot of subject matter to talk to you about here. That's pretty cool. You're in a good space.
I am. I'm very fortunate. It's at a very interesting spot where a lot of those things interact.
Yeah, and I'd like to say it all kind of started for you here at Prep, right? I mean, we can look back to 20-something years ago now.
Yeah, I graduated in 2003 and just had a wonderful class, really great friends. It's funny, I was thinking about it. I actually looked at my old yearbook right before this, and just taking a look at some of the names and the old faces and seeing what a lot of these people have done, it's really phenomenal. I think a real testament to the school.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And of course, me sitting on the inside of that, where we do a lot of outreach and connecting with alumni, it continues to strengthen my resolve as to why I'm so passionate and proud of being a Rambler of Prep and what that means for the community. And the leaders that we're raising here as students and sending them off in the world to accomplish and do great things as you are.
Well, I'm trying. It's funny. I don't even recognize this place. It's so built up. I think when I graduated, my dad graduated in '64, so that would have been 39 years prior to me. And I think the only thing that changed is we didn't wear sport coats every day. So it's definitely come a long way. But that's just really impressive, is the fact that you and your team and everyone else here at the school have been able to pivot and grow and take this into the next for another generation.
Yeah, the schools continue to evolve, and of course, majorly with having boys and girls and
Sure.
a co-ed institution, and thanks to large contributions from some of our donors, being able to really do some great renovations to the building, and specifically, us right here and some of the traditions of Prep. My office is here in the old headmaster's house, so
Yeah.
There is a lot of pieces of Prep that's very recognizable, and then there's also a lot of spots at Prep that I know you were here a few years ago for your reunion. You walk around, you're like, holy cow, where am I right now?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when I started at Prep, Monsignor Allison was the headmaster, and I think Father Jabo was the assistant headmaster for a year, and then he had quite a run. as headmaster of the school. But it's just changed so much. I mean, I was sort of the last gasps of the neighborhood parish system and parish schools and grade schools, and that's changed dramatically. The demographics of the city have changed dramatically as well since then. But it's really it's wonderful just to be here in a thriving place and seeing how it's evolved.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of prep from those days, and you were talking about Monsignor Allison, can you even take us back a little snapshot real quick of what made you decide to come to prep? I know you mentioned your dad had gone to school here. I mean, was there other factors in consideration of choosing to come to prep when you were 14, 15 years old?
Well, I went to OLC, St. Jude's, and I think almost every boy in the class went to prep. My brother, one of my brothers had graduated from prep. My father had graduated from prep. Almost all of my uncles had graduated from prep. I had an uncle who taught here in the 80s. I was the coach of the boxing team. So, it was just really in the air. And I think at the time, so when I started, I had maybe 4 first cousins and a bunch of second cousins here. So it was, I didn't tour any other school. I was just thrilled to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, prep is a special place, and it's like they call it the 6 degrees of separation in the world. Prep's like a degree and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially Erie in general is usually 3, but especially prep, it's family members, cousins, or best friends you grew up in grade school with. The world gets so much smaller, especially in the prep community, and of course for Erie as well.
Absolutely.
So it's funny to hear you say that, and it's fun to reflect on those times. You mentioned looking in your yearbook. Were there any memories that started to spur from you about your time at prep that really stick out to you that you hold fond to yourself?
A lot. So it'd been quite a while since I've thought about all of this, but just the things I was able to be involved with. I mean, when I was in high school, I got to take over the newspaper, so that was a huge. So I was editor of the Rambler, and that has a huge influence on me.
That's cool.
And it was such a training tool. We had this great teacher. He was such a good guy to me. His name was Mark Nikowski, and he was in charge of the newspaper, and I think he was in charge of the yearbook, and I think he taught English as well. But just the encouragement that he showed me, and the encouragement that he showed the other guys that were involved with it was phenomenal. I mean, just what a confidence boost from him and some of the others. And that was probably the most pivotal thing that I did. Some of the other things when I was here, I remember I got to go to DC once. There was a bus trip. Father Jabo and Father Larry Richards ran it, and it was for the March for Life in DC. So we all got on the bus and we go down there, and we stayed at at another Catholic all boys high school called Georgetown Prep, and that place was like a college campus. And I remember our eyeballs just exploded when we got there, and we slept on the floor of the gym and ate in the cafeteria, and that trip really resonated with me as well at the time. But there were just so many different influences. Things like even CYO basketball, which sure wasn't directly prep, but essentially was. And
right.
Some of the other things that I got to do while I was here have really just paid dividends.
And it is funny. There's less, what I've kind of come to learn about prep, it's less about the annual traditions that we have, like Villa. They've had some amazing annual traditions that a Villa alum talks about and that they hold, they cherish. For prep, it's a lot of what you're saying. It's like there's this moment that happened, there was this moment and this opportunity, and it all comes back to the teachers that we had or the classmates that we shared in those experiences with. So many great things that happened to us while we're students here at prep that, to your point, allow us to be impacted and carry on, that we carry with us to our professional careers and as we continue to develop as men.
Yeah, I mean, it was a place that just laid a lot of the groundwork. I think for anyone who graduated from prep, it is the groundwork of a work ethic, a lot of self-confidence, merited or not, a lot of times, which is good and bad, and that's driven a lot of what I've done and I hope to be able to do in the future. And it was just some of these foundational teachers that we had. I mean, thinking through who I was able to really get trained from, whether it was I remember we had an English teacher named Mrs. McCain, and she taught us, the fundamentals of how to write a sentence, how to really structure a thought, things like that. it was a time when, you cram as many words as you can into a page to try to hit a page limit, but she really taught us, no, less is more, how to write. I think algebra is the only math I actually ever understood from Bob Achille. Theology, there was a priest here who's an oblate priest, which was the religious order that taught here. Really, I think when my dad was here, but he was here. I think he was here for family reasons, but his name was Father Fisher, and just academically, it was the first time I ever had like theology and philosophy really presented as like an intellectual discipline, and that made a huge. I think most kids was just like over their heads, but it really, really struck a chord with me at the time, and that had a huge influence on me.
Ms. McCain, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. I had her as well when I was at prep, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Even the classes I screwed up. Like I had German my freshman year, and so I had Rolf Deschner, and I'm sure a lot of people remember him. And I took German 1 year, and I did lousy, and it bothered me horribly. When I went to college, I was like, I'm going to do this. So I ended up taking 18 credits in German. I ended up going to Germany for a summer with school. I took classes in German. So it was like, I didn't get it freshman year, but I learned it
later on.
Yeah, later on because of that. So it's really, I wouldn't be in the place where I am now without it. I think the relationships that you can build, that sense of identity, was really fundamental. And that was a lot of what I remember going to college and thinking. I went to Penn State, so I go to this big school, and it's, rah-rah, and I show up, and I'm like, whoa, these kids are all wearing the McDowell colors. Like, what's going on? Yeah. But in reality, I already knew who I was, right? And had a lot of confidence from being able to come out of that 4 years. And I think it sort of seeps in a lot of ways you don't realize at the time, and then comes out later, and has been really instrumental for my life.
Yeah, amen to that. I couldn't agree with you more. I think I can hear the passion through your voice of just how true and sincere you're being about sharing this and what it meant to you. And fun fact about Rolf Deschner, by the way, so he is the longest standing tenured faculty member ever at Prep, 50 years he taught here, retired in 2018. To this day, though, he still continues to be a substitute teacher here at Prep.
Oh, that's great.
So I'll still see him in the hallways at Prep, and we always, say hello and have a good chat. I know when he listens to this, he's going to have a blast listening to you talk about this. He's going to be so happy to hear about your experiences.
No, it was great. Yeah. It is really a trip down memory lane looking at the yearbook today.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you've mentioned like how you've been able to use a lot of this foundational work that Prep allowed you to create and carried on your career. And I mean, you joked after you read the bio, but seriously, kudos to you on what you've been able to do so far in your career. It's awesome.
Well, I've taken a lot of risks, and they've so far so good. But we'll see. We'll see how it ends up. But I think again that goes to sort of that self-confidence that I think Prep really drove into me and resonated was. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can take the step forward. I'll learn what I need to learn.
Yeah.
I think there really is a sense of risk takers among the graduates, whether it be in the professions, whether it be in industry, all sorts of different fields, and that really separates, I think, the school.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, just kind of what you were saying there. A lot of, there's a cliche, no risk, no reward, right? But to your point, when you're talking about in regards to how Prep helped really create that identity and that self-confidence and what you're able to kind of be able to use that same mentality in your career, I think it's good for people to hear that sort of stuff when listening to a bio like yours.
Sure. Well, I think that's the secret sauce of the school, and I'm sure it's maintained now out, as the school's evolved over the years, but to have a sense of who you are. We were in this framework. It was a very traditional Catholic framework that we were brought up in, educating boys, and they knew what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they still do, but they really knew what they were doing, and you came out knowing who you were, what you were capable of, what the opportunities were out there for you, and I think that, if anything, I mean, look, I don't remember trigonometry at all or calculus, but I did leave with a real sense of identity, and to be able to be given that and have that shaped, I think, as a young kid. I mean, from 14 to 18, that's a real gift, and that's a gift that I hope I can give, even my own kids.
Yeah, amen to that. And it is pretty cool, what you've been able to take those things on and be able to do with your career. And, you've worked in law, in finance, and development work. And, to kind of give listeners a little context to, your journey, you had some early years experience at KPMG. That was part of what we talked about in your bio. And how did those early career experiences help you start to, form into the work you're doing today, and whatnot?
Yeah, well, I went to college, so I went to Penn State.
Yeah.
And then I went to 2 law schools. I went to Duquesne and Pittsburgh. I actually had one of my classmates in my class and another guy who was Aaron Keim, great guy. Sat next to him, I think, every day for 3 years, which is funny. I went to grade school with him, too. And then Pat Sullivan, who was probably 2 years ahead of me at prep, he was in my class as well. And I took the bar exam. The '08 crash had just happened. There were, no jobs. And I just figured, I doubled down on student debt. So I went and I got a master. It's called an LLM. It's a master's in tax law at Villanova. So I just taken the bar in PA. They had a great program, and I went there for another year. And thank goodness I did, because that opened up a lot of opportunities. And you talk about what those sort of first jobs mean.
Yeah.
I had 2 professors. They were both had just made partner at the firm, and I thought they were agent. They were my age now, if that. And it was class. It was called Taxable Mergers and Acquisitions, and there was this guy. His name was Scott, and he showed up one day. I was a little early, and he was exhausted. And I said, "You all right?" He goes, "I was there." He goes, "I'm a partner now. I can't be working till 2 a.m. And I said, "Look, sounds like you got a hire." And he said, "Yeah, I think we do. You interested?" And then they put me through the ringer through this hiring process, and I got hired there. And that was great, because I showed up and I told them I knew how to use Microsoft Excel, and I honestly thought I did. I didn't. And that was this crash course in a lot of exposure to financial modeling, how to look at returns, due diligence. What we did is we did the due diligence work primarily for private equity funds or large corporates that were making acquisitions, and then we would make recommendations and work with the investment bankers and the law firms and all that. So I did that in Philly for a year. I was back and forth to New York City a lot. Eventually, I essentially got transferred and promoted to New York. I did that there for a bit. But I wanted to come back. I really wanted to come back to Erie, and I wanted to practice law. That type of work was great, but I wanted to get an exposure to practicing law. I had been a summer clerk at a firm in Erie called the Knox Firm. They made me an offer, and I practiced there for 3.5, 4 years, doing business work, estate planning, a lot of succession planning for businesses. So helping people work through how do you pass a business on to their kids or grandkids or key employees, things like that. And then I was able to join the McDonald-Illick firm. I was actually going to leave town, and it was sort of my last shot on Erie, and had a great experience there. I practiced primarily business transactional work, lots and lots of transactions.
Through those experiences, what did you start to learn about the Erie economy, I guess? So this was before you started working in the Development Corporation and started to get tied in with that. But now you're starting to work in business transactions and all these different types of things within Erie. I guess, what were you starting to learn about Erie during those years?
Well, I mean, so I grew up here.
Yeah.
My dad's a CPA, so I mean, just talking about the Erie business community and the way things get done was just our kitchen table talk every night. So this was the air that we breathe, and so that was our biggest example, is just following what he was able to do. And sort of the legacy that he created and trying to strive to meet that. My brothers as well. So I have one brother who's a partner at the Knox firm. He's a municipal attorney. I have another brother who is a real entrepreneur. He is an architect. One time, an architectural firm, a construction firm, and an engineering firm. He sold all of that, went into real estate development on his own, and some accounting actually, and now he owns he owns a company in town that sells safety equipment, which is doing quite well. So that sort of world was, I was just sort of born into, and I think my mother's grandfather was on city council. I mean, that type of world and environment, I was. It was just sort of the air that we breathe. But yeah, and then I was at McDonald-Illick, and then I had a chance to get involved with local development work. And I wasn't married yet. I didn't have any kids. Kind of said, well, this is either going to go really well or I'm going to be chased out of town. And I honestly, a few times, wasn't certain which way it was going to go, but went for it and was asked to join. It was called the EDDC. It's the Erie Downtown Development Corporation. But at the time, we didn't have a paperclip, pencil. We didn't have anything, and just ran with an idea and a lot of really strong backing from a board, both had our backs and then also financially, and we were able to really turn the needle downtown.
I would say so,
and pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would imagine when you drive downtown now, you're very proud to see what's going on and how you started this legacy of what's being created, continued on, I should say, for downtown Erie, but revitalize. Two questions off of that. One, what made it appealing for you to get involved in that? I know you're saying you were ready to you were single, take this chance, but what made it appealing, honestly, for you to look at this opportunity and say, this was something I want to be involved in? And then maybe hit on that first, and then I'll ask my follow-up, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So, we had some of the largest institutions locally backing it, and backing it in a very big way. And who else was going to do it? And quite frankly, I wanted to be involved because I thought I could help see it through. And I thought that I brought a skill set that could really help turn the needle. There were some bumps along the road. We learned a lot throughout that process, but it was something we really had to move forward quickly. And it was just crazy experiences. We had to buy a McDonald's. We had to we started a curling league. We ended up building, I think it was 106 apartments, a parking garage, a grocery store, which epically failed, and has evolved. We renovated historic buildings. We built new buildings. We had to raise a lot of money, which was not easy. So there was a huge commitment locally, about $28 million to what was being done, and none of what happened downtown would have happened without it, because the development was occurring at the time. I don't think it still is, but at the time it was the poorest zip code in the United States. So the median income was something like $10,600. So when when you go to investors and you would try to model out what's called pro formas and looking at returns and things like that, it just got to the point where say, look, we can't hide this fact. We just got to embrace it, and we own it, and we did. And we had to get pretty creative as part of that process with a lot of different tax financing and things like that, and we were able to pull it off in a big way. And when I got to the point where I saw that things were, at least I thought, stabilized, and most of the projects, if not all of them, done or closely to, I had the opportunity with the role that I'm in now, and I took it because I saw it morphing in, well, at least the evolution of the EDDC at that time was a little bit up in the air. Is it going to be more of a caretaker institution or keep developing? And it was time for me to take on a new role. Yeah,
you did your time. You paid your dues.
Oh yeah.
Started to have a family.
Yeah, like people don't understand the hits that we took. We were just completely ostracized at times, like threatening things sent to the house. We were in the news. But it's all right. We got through it, and it was all for the betterment, I think.
When I used to go to downtown Erie for Rib Fest or whatever it was, I would park in the back of that McDonald's parking lot. Yeah. And it took away my parking. I had to go find a new lot to park in.
So I got a cool story about that. So the group had acquired the real estate literally to the west of it and to the south of it. So that it was called North Park Row, and all that real estate. And then to the south was a surface parking lot that Gannon University owned, and I think we had it under contract with them at the time. But there was this McDonald's, and so it was kind of this key real estate parcel within all of it. And at the time, we were told that it was the highest incident rate for the police. So the police were there the most, and actually had an office at the time that overlooked it, and it was rough. There was a lot of activity happening in the area, and not necessarily at the McDonald's, but outside of it. So.
Right.
We want to be able to acquire it, and there's no calling McDonald's. So who do you call? So
yeah, right.
So we did. We just kept calling corporate, and nobody cared or answered, or there was no one you could actually talk to. So then I got on LinkedIn and sent messages to every executive I could find. Got on Twitter and sent it to.
Oh my gosh.
So finally, somebody got a hold of us, and they called, and we had a couple conversations, and they said, we're thrilled. You guys are putting all this money. It was all, we had great aspirations at the time. They're, look, you're investing this money into the area. we're thrilled. We want to be part of it. We're actually going to invest into this downtown McDonald's. And we're like, oh no, we screwed up.
Right.
We gave them the confidence to invest in, like this is key to what we're trying to do. And so we're like, wait, we're going to write them a letter. So we wrote them this very nice letter that explain, thank them for their time, their willingness to invest into the property. But and this was not like a veiled threat. This was just a fact. It's like, look, we appreciate it, but you realize that on 5th Street, where we're doing the major of the construction staging, is actually your exit for your drive-through. So your drive-through is going to be closed down for the next 5 years. So if you'd like to reconsider, please let us know. Boom, we got a call. We got this huge number, which we overpaid. Our board gave us a standing ovation and applauded, and we were able to acquire it. It had to be torn down in 30 days. It was torn down in 30 days. And yeah, it was. And then we didn't know what to do with this real estate. We started a curling league, which was a ton of fun outside for a winter or two. And then, it was off to the races.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my colleague at the time, who now runs development for the Erie Catholic school system, for the grade school system, Nicole Reitzel, she found this climbing gym out of Pittsburgh called the Sun Climbing Gym, and we just hit it off with these guys. We were able to put a great deal, and they're now on the first floor, and then there's apartments above. But yeah, that's the story about how that came to be.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What a great story. I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm sure so many people right now are listening saying, wow, what a fun story. Like, that is awesome.
Yeah, it was a good one. I thought we lost it there, and we almost did, but the timing was great. If I remember correctly, the franchisee, his timing was just right for him to move on.
Sure.
The time, McDonald's had a contract for so many years. They own the real estate. So it was, the timing was perfect, and
it all culminated into this perfect storm that you guys were able to take advantage of, and
finally came together. Or else I don't know what would have happened down there.
That's probably the biggest, I'm sure, milestone for you guys. I'm sure physically representing, the growth of what you guys were working on. But I think most people associate downtown Erie. You think of that McDonald's, and to not see it there anymore, and to see what it's become. It's such a great representation of all the work and effort into all over downtown Erie now, and the things that are happening. But that story is just a great one in terms of just persistence and not going to take no for an answer. I mean, how many people would have just stopped messaging after, so many on LinkedIn, or the phone calls, the emails? It's just a great testament to...
Well, our necks were on the line. I mean, there was a real... Heck, at the time we had a pretty robust newspaper. Not as, hate to say... They're doing a great job with the resources they have, but I mean, we were like the editorial every day, and they were looking at what we were doing, and there were eyeballs on us.
Yeah.
In a big, big, big way. People rooting against us and everything else. So it was a lot of pressure, but that's okay. I mean, it forced us to get creative and work. The other pivotal point was too. I mean, none of these projects papered out, and and they've had their challenges, but. There was a tax reform in 2017. It was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and it was sort of before the last bill that was just extended on the tax side. But in there was this little minuscule tax provision. It was called opportunity zones. And what it was is it gave investors who were willing to take a shot in the poorest zip codes in the poorest census tracts in the United States. They gave them a little bit of a step up on their basis when they invested. They got a time value of money, and when they sold after 10 years, they don't have to pay tax on the capital gain that accrued over time. Anyway, so we ran with this, saw it, and I was like, holy crap, this is interesting. And I was still at the law firm at the time, but the job with the EDDC was kind of in the works, and got a hold of our state senator, Dan Laughlin, who had just gotten elected, because there was a 30 days, it ended up getting extended out to 60, where the governor of each state could select these census tracts, and there was a limited number. So I was like, this is what we got to do. And he's like, this is great. So we put together a map. He went, and my recollection is that he actually went to the chief of staff of the governor at the time and said, hey, we want this. and
Wow.
They said, what are you talking about? They had no clue. Well, at a point, we ended up being able to get this great real estate designated for this federal tax incentive, and then we just ran with it. We were one of the first. And again, it was just sort of this, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to move forward. Ended up getting connected with the think tank that was behind this tax incentive for low-income communities. And it was really interesting. It was started by Sean Parker, who, if you remember that name, he's the guy who started Napster. So he ended up funding this.
Oh my gosh.
And got to know these guys really well, had us all over Capitol Hill, but as a result, we met a lot of investors. And then it was a large called impact investment fund called Arteris that put quite a bit of money into what we were doing. And then also allowed up some regional investors to start up opportunity zone funds as well and invest. And we were on the national stage there for a little bit. We had, his name is Ben Carson, so he was the secretary of HUD. He came and spoke at an event. They had us to the White House, which was quite an experience.
Yeah.
We did everything we could to try to get the word out on Erie and move the ball forward. So I'm thrilled. I mean, it was quite a bit of money raised, quite a bit of money deployed. It was real estate acquired, and it was like 3.5 years. And it was a big time in my life. I mean, my wife and I had gotten engaged and married, and we had our first son during that time. It was COVID as well, so that put a whole different light on everything. There were riots downtown for different things at times. One time the buildings were their windows smashed and like Molotov cocktails thrown in. So it wasn't all easy, but we did it, and it's something that I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, I would say so, and you certainly should be. I mean, for 3.5, 4 years, however long it was, to be able to put that work and effort into what you're able to be a part of. I mean, one of my questions for you was about the opportunity zones and the work you did, so it's cool you're able to bring that up and talk about that. And it's neat. Like, you found a little loophole, not loophole, you found a little niche, you found a little area that you guys could take advantage of, and you guys just ran with it. You were all in, you made it happen, and you were able to get that those connections that you talked about, the investments, the spotlight on Erie during that time. When you reflect back on that, I mean, what kind of sticks out to you in terms of lessons you learned? So take it from the context of us as listeners to you hear these stories right now. They're exciting, they're cool to hear. What lessons that you learned through those years can we apply to our professional careers, to making ourselves better in our jobs and our careers? What sort of things can you teach us about that you learned during those times?
I think two things, really. One, you've got to work with really good people. So, I was very fortunate, worked with some really wonderful people, and then also had a board, and the board leadership. So his name's Tim Nicastro. He's the president of Erie Insurance. He backed us in a really big way.
Prep class of 1978.
There you go. So he backed us in a really, really big way. So he was chair of the board. This was his baby. This was his idea. He's the founder of it. He raised the local capital, the first $28 million that was put into this. He backed everything we were doing. Wouldn't have happened without him. And then this sort of core executive council on the board that were willing to back us and allowed us. I think the next lesson learned was make hard decisions, because we had to make a lot of hard decisions. We broke a lot of hearts. Was not easy, and you had to stand by those and move forward. And they backed us because they were a great group. We could trust them. They could work with. They were willing to work with us, but then allowed us to make those hard decisions to move forward. A lot of things we couldn't renew some leases, or we had to work with the city to close down streets, and we had to work with all sorts of contractors and subs and disputes over payments and things along all those lines. Not easy. And so I think fundamentally the ability to make hard decisions with the ultimate goal in mind, and then working with people who really are just wonderful individuals who aren't going to get stuck in the muck of the day-to-day grind, but see the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think we can all have experiences we can reference where we maybe didn't work with great people and have those types of good decisions, those opportunities. But to me, what I hear a lot of too from what you're sharing is you have to be able to stand bold on what you believe in, and just be a leader in that regard. If you have a vision, be willing to work at it and do what you need to do to execute. And some of these things you're talking about, when you work with good people and you're the leader of a group, or you're in a group where there's another leader, you can have that voice and be able to come together collaboratively. But then also, you're talking about making those hard decisions with the ultimate goal in mind.
We've got to know who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that comes back to prep, right? So you have to be able to you have to have some sort of foundation upon which you're working professionally or personally, and if not, I mean, you're just going to fall away.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it is funny looking at it. A lot of the people that we were working with were prep grads. I mean, the attorney, a couple of attorneys, Jack Mailer, Jim Walzak, great guys. Still work with them on things today. Understood what we were doing. You know, really took cuts on fees and things like that in order to help us move along. And on the board, I mean, it was a lot of individuals that graduated from here and just said, look, as a community, we need to do this. I mean, to speak frankly, there was a real void within the public leadership of the community, and there still is. And it took the private sector to stand up and say, look, we need to grow as a community. We need to do things. And a lot of those people that did it were graduates of here.
The common thread that you had with each other was
or close enough. I mean, I worked hand in hand with John Persinger, who actually ran for mayor. I practiced law with him for a number of years, and then he asked me to work with him at the EDDC. And I mean, he went to a high school in New Jersey that's pretty much a replica of Prep. So I mean, very all boys, very good school out there, and you know, he got it too. So I mean, it really is a mindset that is something, if you have a chance to do it, jump on it.
And you know, I would imagine there's people listening to this who are thinking, man, that's so cool what he did. I wish I could be involved in a project like that, or I wish I could make a difference, you know, in my community, or do something impactful. To those, maybe somebody sitting here and they were asking you that question about, how can I make a difference in my community? You know, I'm working this job, I'm doing this and that. What can I start doing to start to get involved and help out my community?
I don't know. I guess be careful what you ask for. So
We're getting the truth here today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Put your hand up and be involved. So I mean, there's no what can I do. It's what are you going to do. So you can't just wait around and look for things. You need to actually seek out those opportunities or be proactive. I mean, I think in Erie, and I think everywhere, there's just such a leadership vacuum. I mean, what we need as a community, and I think everywhere, is people to just raise their hand and say, look, this is what needs to be done. This is why. Be able to articulate it coherently, explain things, and run with it. And so if there's any sort of advice, I would say, look, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But be proactive.
Yeah, I really like that. I think, to your point, sometimes don't overthink.
Yeah,
just do it.
I just got sucked back in. So I was able to then take this role with Carnegie Foundry. We can talk about that. It's really interesting. I mean,
please tell us more about that.
Well, so Carnegie Foundry is a venture studio, which is a really fancy word for an investment group that has applied development capability, and so it's a great group of people, a lot of PhDs in math, robotics, things along those lines. We've got some people with physics backgrounds as well. Some really hardcore business experience across groups like Lockheed Martin, big organizations like that, and then also on like the consulting side, some McKinsey guys and things. And we're a for-profit entity, but we have a relationship with Carnegie Mellon, specifically with something called the National Robotics Engineering Center. It's an applied development group at the school. It's absolutely awesome. It's about 160 engineers, and these are people who get their hands dirty, right? They build things. And they build things primarily for the Department of Defense when they're offshoots like DARPA, which is that early stage sort of innovation, or large corporations, and so they do a ton of work for John Deere, for the mining industry, the material handling industry. Well, they've got all this skill and know-how, but also intellectual property. But how is that monetized? So as a school, they own this. They give out licenses, things along those lines with IP, but they didn't have a way to sort of like a commercialization engine, and that's what Carnegie Foundry is. So we're set up to take a hard look at that IP and say, hey, that's a really, really good idea. Take it, form a company around it, raise investment capital, and then take it to market, and then it's sort of off to the races. So we've done it, I would say 2.5 times right now. So we've done it with 2 different companies that are off and running.
Wow.
One, which we're just kicking off a pilot, actually in Erie, the next couple of weeks, but that's going to really accelerate. And we're looking at others, and it's quite a learning curve. So it's also within NREC, it's not just sort of those legacy industries. They were also one of the first to really innovate with AI. And it's funny, they've been doing it so long, they call it machine learning. But they have, so there's both, the code side to it, but then there's also the functional. How do you then actually apply AI? It's a lot more than just ChatGPT and having it, help you write your emails. It's right. it's something that can then be embedded within the physical robotics as well. So that's what we've seen a lot of. How do you make things smart? And how do you actually, you could build a robot, but how does it actually operate? And that's where we see a lot of the interplay between the two. So it's a great time to be involved with it.
Yeah. So it sounds like from your background, you haven't been as much involved in technology until this position. Is that kind of correct? I mean, it seems like you've worked in a lot of development, things like that. So is this a new world you had to learn a little bit as you got into this type of field?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on the technology side, I'm not an engineer. I'm not turning a wrench. I'm not.
Yeah,
sure. I'm not coding.
As many of us.
Yeah, but so I work. So I'm the in-house attorney, and then I'm also in charge of the finances. So I spend a lot of time. We have a number of investors. We've raised quite a bit of capital. It's working with them. It's trying to bring in new investors. It's how do you structure that? How do you draft the documents? How do you work with outside counsel?
Right.
How do you work with all the intellectual property and the patents and everything else? So there's a lot there. It's busy, and you got to wear a lot of hats because we have both the parent entity, which is called the Carnegie Foundry, and then we have the subsidiaries that we formed, all of which have their own what's called cap tables, so different investors and everything along those lines, which range from venture capital funds to corporate strategics. We've hosted teams from Europe come in. I get to be on calls with people all over the world, taking a look at what we're doing and try to structure it. But it is funny. It oftentimes resonates best here. I mean, we take a look at Western Pennsylvania and just up and down Interstate 79, and there's a ton of opportunity. And that's really where we're trying to distinguish ourselves.
Yeah. Well, how neat. I mean, to be able to learn about this, and as you're talking about these, patents and IPs and all these things, you got to kind of know how these things work a little bit when explaining it to potential investors and be able to have these to articulate as you were talking about earlier. I'm sure that can be a challenge at times when you're learning all these different terminologies and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of jargon.
Yeah.
And it is funny. So no offense to the guys, I love them, but a lot of the guys that I work with used to work in defense contracting, so it's like acronym city. So I don't know what they're talking about half the time. But it is trying to work through that. But at the end of the day, none of this stuff is too hard. You just need to be able. Again, I think the only math I ever understood was algebra. Right? It's like fifth grade math. So you need to understand how things work, how things are presented. Try to do it in a coherent way that makes sense to everyone. If people don't understand how things work, you don't want to move forward with it. You got to take things down to really their sort of fundamental core, what's most essential. And if you can drill it down enough and block out the rest of the noise, nothing is really too hard at the end of the day. But everything's simple until it after you've done it for a while.
Yeah, certainly. And I think I know for myself and other people listening to you saying, man, that guy, he's got enormous IQ. He's just smarter than all of us. There's no way I could do something like that. But I appreciate you kind of dumbing it down for all of us.
Oh, yeah. Well, I also talked about how I failed German freshman year. So I don't know about that. I was, just luckily I've been very fortunate to be in positions where I can get the opportunity to figure it out.
Sure.
And that again has really paid off for me. We'll see how this, how things develop over the years, but it's opened up a lot of fun, a lot of interesting opportunities for me.
And I would imagine passion behind these projects. I mean, you go out there and you discover these IPs and these different ways that you could create a business around something or a patent or whatever it is, and be able to turn it into a company. And I'm sure you said this is 2.5 times now you've been able to do this. I'm sure by the time you've kind of started with inception and then did all that work and effort to get it into where it's at, to take it to market, it's got to be a great sense of just joy and fulfillment into that type of work too.
I mean, so the one company we formed is called Free Space Robotics, and it's a material handling company, which is basically how do you store things really efficiently and how do you access them within a warehouse. And I mean, I knew nothing about this industry. All I know is that we had a really good idea, and it was based upon some foundational work that was done at CMU, and we were able to license it. And then we had this very simple demonstration of it, which was just like 2 rows and some totes moving around. Well, we took that and we put over $3 million into it, and then we raised another 6.5, and then we've gone out. We've built out now this massive demonstrator in Pittsburgh. It's like 60 by 80. It's wow. Huge. And then we went and we really had to put our necks on the line. We won the Startup of the Year, which was a big deal within that space. But we had to learn the industry. Now we're making our first sales and all of that, and it's kind of off to the races. But it's how did we get to that point where, again, it's just sort of that self-confidence. All right, well, I'm going to learn this industry. We're going to learn it. I understand it's very obvious to me as to why this is a more efficient way to act. But I need to test that. I need to dive into it. And then we got more and more confidence in it. We were able to put in the capital, and we were able to raise money off that. And we got a lot of validation there from some great strategic investors that came in that know the industry inside and out. And they said, hey, again, it's working with great people. Keep moving down this road. This is the way you're doing it. And it's evolved from there. So that's one example.
Yeah. No, it's a really good story about that. And I think it's, just to hear that fortitude and what it takes to actually be able to do something like that. I mean, it's one thing for somebody to sit back and say, I had this idea, I want to do this, but to hear the ways in which you kind of tackle these things and you just very logically and systematically approach them to say, let me break this down in its simplest form. Let me try to evaluate this and test it and learn it and then take it to market or raise the capital, do whatever you got to do to get it to that next step in the process.
Oh, that's just law school. I mean, so it's taking that and trying to think through things, and just been fortunate to be in a spot to do it. But yeah, it's it's great. It's being there and being at that. I live in Erie, so raising my kids here. I work out of my house. I'm back and forth quite a bit, which is it depends. Sometimes it's a grind, but at the end of the day, it's just fine. It's not that far, and they don't want me tinkering with anything, so they're happy to have me with the spreadsheets and the legal documents and everything else. But it's met a lot of people. I mean, we pitched, just to show you. I mean, so in order to raise that money for that company, we pitched something like 1,800 different venture capital funds and corporate strategics.
Wow!
And
say that again for everybody who maybe missed that part.
So we pitched, and pretty much me, with the team that I'm part of. About 1,800 different corporates. Now, not all of them gave us a phone call and all of that, but we really had to go out there, and that was internationally. But it's been great because of quite a network that then developed, and then we've been able to apply to some of the other things that we have going. But it's been a great experience, and it continues to be, and it's kind of off to the races for the group.
Yeah. No, I jokingly but seriously asked you to repeat that because I think it's easy to hear your bio, the success you've had, what you've been able to accomplish. It's like, man, Matt's lucky. He gets to do this, this, and that. But when you hear about some of those elements of, no, like it's a grind. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes 1,800 different pitches to these firms and whatnot. It's not just Matt's lucky. It's like you've put in the work and the effort on all these different projects you've been talking to us about through this podcast episode to make these things happen with a good group of people.
Well, I mean, Matt's still paying his student loans, so. We'll see. It's coming together. I mean, it's a very fancy bio, but it is still all coming together.
And just slight pivot here. Can you comment on the world of AI, robotics, all these things that are happening? It's hard not to see a headline about how AI is evolving and at a rapid pace. And from ChatGPT, where it was just 3-4 years ago, to where it is now, that's just a very minuscule example of the industry as a whole. Can you maybe chat with us a little about what you're seeing from this space and where you kind of see it going in the next handful of years? Because it's going to be a different world for you, your kids, my kids, that they're going to grow up in.
Well, I think you have to look at it from a couple of different lenses. So I think from just like, sitting here at a school, how do you address it from an educational function? So I'd love to hear what even like the school's trying to think about this and how do you use it? And holy smokes, these kids are a bunch better writers now because ChatGPT's writing their term papers. It's funny, we're probably going to go back, I would think back to more of like even a traditional thing where you had oral exams and things like that. And I mean, when I went to Penn State, I had blue books, so I had to write my exams by hand in the room. I could see a lot more of that, which I think is probably a good thing ultimately, because if you don't get that sort of foundation, it's going to be really hard to use then AI effectively, which is what I believe everyone's going to have to be able to do. So, for example, one of the companies that we started out of Carnegie Foundry is called Thrive Labs, and it's a great tool. It's going to help people age in place and live within like group home settings and more of a healthy, vibrant way, and it's all AI. But for example, our lead engineer who's working on the development side of this, he wrote 110,000 lines of code within 3 weeks. And then 110,000 lines of code was actually tested and worked. So it went through all the quality assurance. That would have taken a team of 6 months and months. He said like months in order to do. He did it in 3 weeks. Well, the reason he was able to do it is because he used Claude, which is one of the AI tools that's out there. So, but he knows what he's doing. He really knows what he's doing. So if you don't have that foundation, it's just going to cover you so far. So I think when I look at sort of education for my own kids, thinking, okay, well, what's the best education that I can give them? I mean, I hope to give them sort of this classical, traditional education, much more than even I had, to the best extent possible. Because I think if you don't have those foundational tools, you're not going to be able to then learn how to use AI and things like that most effectively if you don't have that bedrock. So I'm looking at grade schools now for my kids. I'm like, come on, do you have to give them iPads and Chromebooks? Like, nah, I don't know. I give them pen and paper. But which is funny because I'm in that.
Correct, I was about to say that.
So I spent a week I got to go to a think tank once called the American Enterprise Institute in DC, and I was there for a week. And one of the people that I was there with was a guy who worked in educational policy. And I remember at the time, this would have been like 2019, him telling me that there was this rise in sort of classical education, but the heartbeat of it was all coming out of Silicon Valley, and that was why. And I've sort of seen that come around. So we'll see how these things develop. So that's sort of on the educational side, but following up, how do I see that then extending? It's when you're a high school senior and you're thinking about what you're going to do moving on, I would take a hard look at, what are these skills that I'm trying to study or learn, and how is that being applied? I mean, it's no secret. The kids who are entry-level jobs right now, they're having trouble because a lot of these things are actually being automated, and it's not going to slow down. So think about what sort of foundational skills you want to learn, and how does that then apply to, this is like the genesis of the internet in many ways, and the amount of money and capital that's being invested into it, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily we should look at it as this is a bad thing, we shouldn't implement it. It's a tool, but I like how you're talking about the implementation of it as it can enhance what your foundational skill set is. There obviously will be the pretenders out there who are going to use these tools to act like they know different things, but the subject matter isn't going to be very deep. Because to your point with the example of the gentleman who did the coding in 100,000 or 110,000 in 3 weeks, he had that foundational knowledge and whereabouts to be able to produce that in a way that it did get approved and would cross all the accreditations and whatnot.
Well, yeah, and even like with being an attorney and drafting legal documents and seeing like what those tools are capable of right now, they're really good. Yeah. They're going to get a lot better. But if you don't know what you're doing, looking at those, they make a lot of mistakes, so they don't have the context and things like that. And that just took time. That took 8 years of, having a partner redline something and give it to me by hand, and good thing I know how to read cursive, right? And all of that, and being able to edit it. And that's the sort of foundational skill if it's in law, if it's in accounting, if it's in engineering, if it's in publishing, if it's any of these things, you've really got to know. Yeah. But if you're smart about it and you know how to use AI, and these are the latest tools, I think it can really supercharge anybody who's got a good foundation.
And to me, what's going to be the most fascinating, I think, as this continues to develop, is regulation around it. To see how much the government will step in or not to regulate some of these tools. Like even some of the, you go on social media, see a video or a picture, and eventually soon here, we're not going to be able to know the difference between a real person or if this was an AI-generated image. I came across a video the other day that showed Abraham Lincoln playing for the Lakers. And I was like, you can tell it's AI, but it's not that far off yet. And in a couple years, it's going to get even better.
Well, there's not even the conversation being had. And that's that actually worries me quite a bit, is that at a national level, we have to look at this and say, hey, regulation's sort of regulation is one of those words that a lot of people love or a lot of people get a little bit worried about, but we just need a conversation. What is this? Look at this tool. How is this going to be implemented? What is the role of this? Because not to go into too much of a deep dive of it, but there's the risk of there being real disruption within, for the first time actually within the white collar workforce. So we took a look at me growing up, there was a big disruption in the blue collar workforce, right? And a lot of the jobs being subbed out because of different trade bills and things like that, not the manufacturing base. Well, guess what? It's coming now for the white collar workforce as well. A lot of those entry level things. I look at a lot of the work that I did when I was at KPMG, and guess what? AI could have done it, and it could have done better and more effectively. Wouldn't have had a learning curve. I actually had a team of people that I worked with out of India at the time. They worked at night, and they would help get us materials. Well, all of that could, and I'm sure it is being expedited through AI or will be. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But I wish at a national level we were really having a conversation about this, because if not, basically it's just being led by 4 or 5 companies, and that we need. From a larger macro view, I think we need to think about that.
Yeah, certainly. I agree. I think the conversations need to be had, should be had, and we could probably have a whole podcast episode just on this evolving world of AI, honestly. But I appreciate you sharing some comments on this particular space as well.
Yeah, it's fun. But I'm still involved in Erie. I got sucked back in. I was asked to be chair of something called the Erie Quiz, which is a...
can you tell us a little bit about that? I know we're kind of winding down on the time here, but can you share with us a little bit about what that involves and what that entails? Because I've heard the terminology, but I'm sure others as well have heard it. But what does it mean? What is it?
So it's a community reinvestment improvement zone. I think I have the acronym correctly, but it's an authority. It's like the water authority or the sewer authority, anything like that. So it's a municipal authority, essentially at the end of the day. And it's a district, so it's 130 acres that were selected by tax parcel all throughout the city of Erie, and it's an economic development tool. There is one in Lancaster, and there's a predecessor to it called the NIS, which is in Allentown. But this is a tool that was championed primarily by Senator Laughlin. So he was like a voice in the wilderness for probably a decade trying to get this through for the city, and nobody would back him because the governor's office wasn't for it and all this, and it was sort of taboo, but he fought and he fought and he fought. And with the current administration, Shapiro's administration, they actually, to their credit, said, yeah, we're in. And we were able to get a CRIS designated in Erie. It's a great board. It's appointed by the state senator, by 2 state reps, Bob Mursky, who actually was a teacher at Prep when I was here, Representative Harkins, and by the mayor. I was asked to be part of it. I really kind of hemmed and hawed. I didn't know if I wanted to do it because I knew how it's a lot of work. But I said, heck, I'm all in. I was asked to be the chair of it. And we've been able to really move things forward. So in a year, we were able to, once it was approved, there was no application. It was this very extensive application process. It was about, just page numbers. It was like 220 pages of information and demographics and financial modeling on tax bases and things like that. And fortunately, I was able to work with Jim Walzak over at McDonald-Illig, and then also Brian Cressman, who's one of the younger partners there. And they dove in, and again, they did an incredible amount of work on a handshake that they might get paid one day. And so I give a lot of credit to them. But we got the application done. The board had a lot of good input, a lot of input from different community members and organizations. Anyway, application was done. We set a zone. Then what? You have to spend then the next year and you establish what a baseline is. Okay. So to establish the tax baseline and said, hey, certain city and certain state taxes are paid from the properties or the businesses that are in that zone up to a certain point. So that baseline was just set and that number. And what the CRIS authority can do is it can actually capture the growth on that year after year after year. And there were a few very, very smart things that were done when Erie was brought into the CRIS, and one of those was incorporating a tax that Erie Insurance pays. It's 2% premium tax on all their insurance policies. So that was incorporated into the sort of tax calculus. that's really supercharged sort of the growth. So as a result, in our first year, we're going to hit probably close to $15 million in tax revenue coming into the CRIZ.
Wow.
Well, that's great, but what do you do with it? And because there's this there's this use it or lose it rule. So what you have to do then is identify projects within some really strict parameters on what you can actually invest this money in as an authority. And it's primarily real estate development, though we're going to do some small business loan funds as well here into the future. But coming into that, how do we utilize these funds? Because if you look at the amount, so if it's capped at 15, that's just the state amount, the city tax isn't, and then there's a 3% growth on the $15 million or cost of living adjustment, basically calling it on the 3% every year. It's going to grow to over $750 million, but that's not just $750 million. That's what we can springboard. So in this first year, we wanted to make sure we had enough projects lined up that we didn't have to essentially return this money to the state. Because the beauty of this is there's no new taxes. There's no new taxes. There's no cost to anyone. It's basically, hey, here's a pot of your money that was generated locally, and you can try to utilize it locally before it goes back to Harrisburg. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's
and
cool.
We've lined up here in the first year over $200 million in projects that are going to be supported by it, from an initial outlay of about $45 million from the CRIZ, and it's working now with a lot of the local banks on how to leverage this incoming capital to magnify it and borrow against it and things like that. So that got a great executive director there, but I've spent a decent amount of time on that and had a lot of fun trying to get it off the ground.
Just a side project for you.
Well,
I laughed because you were saying I didn't really want to do it. You already work full time. All right, I'm all in.
Kind of. I was like, look, I've been lucky to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I really like the people that are involved. It's not overly political. I'm going to do everything I can in my power so it's not overly political.
Sure.
I don't think as an organization or as an authority it should be picking winners and losers. I think it needs to be very broad. It needs to be done in a way that really sort of advances the collective region. And, if I can help set a foundation along with some great people to do that, I'm thrilled to be part of it.
Yeah, well, that's tremendous, and it's great to hear about this opportunity, this authority that's being involved in economic development here in Erie, and congratulations on the success so far. I mean, being able to get approved and being able to get the funds raised through that first year, the percentage growth, I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, it sounds good. It's a lot of, it's all volunteer, but thrilled to, it was a lot of confidence, I think, that was put on me, and a lot of responsibility to try to be part of the group of people who are leading this, and just really want to try to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. And then we bring it all back to here sits Cathedral Prep in the heart of it all, right? Downtown Erie.
Well, truly, I mean,
yeah.
and look at what you've done. I mean, again, we started this off, I was joking when my dad graduated, nothing had really changed.
Yeah.
And now look at what's done on 12th Street. Look at what's done here at the physical campus. Look at the faculty that you're able to bring in, the expertise, and look at where the kids go and the different things that they do. I mean, and you absorb Villa. I mean, come on, that is a huge thing, and a testament, honestly, to the strength of the school, both from a leadership perspective and then also from a financial perspective. They were able to work with the diocese and then merge the two campuses, have the infrastructure in place, and then now create, it's just sort of a growth of the culture of the school with the girls and see where it leads. But we're very fortunate to have this here because it was not inevitable to have the school.
Yeah,
and have it survive and thrive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're very fortunate to have the support that we've had from a lot of the businesses who support, whether they sponsor a program or get involved, however it is, and a lot of our alumni around the country and honestly around the world that are supporting the school and allowing us to continue on with these investments we've made and helping families. It's helping. I was on the phone with an alum yesterday. Lives in Alabama. He was talking about a story when he was in high school. A wealthy family helped support him go to prep, and now he's calling to make his first gift to prep to give back to help support another family here.
That's great.
And it's like,
yeah,
it touches your heart, and it just reinvigorates you as to the mission of the heartbeat of the school.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I think you should be really proud of being part of this institution, because it's not inevitable. I mean, you take a look at the city. The city has shrunk by like 40%. A lot of people have moved out.
Yeah.
It's But here, because of that alumni network, because of the people who are willing to work and strive and understand the mission of the school and propel it forward, it's thrived and it's going to continue to thrive here, hopefully for another 100 years.
Well, and our stories are tied in with the work you're doing. You know, a lot of the Erie Downtown Development Corporation work you did, and a lot of the work you're doing with Chris now to help support, you know, the Erie city and the region. I think we're in a sense hand in hand in that, because we're able to talk about the success and the things that you're doing in downtown Erie, not just you, but collectively as a whole, the groups. And we're a part of that, you know. We're a part of that, and the mission and the work that's being done in Erie.
Well, they don't talk about it. I mean, the diocese was. I mean, through Gannon.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yes.
A big way, both financially
Yep.
and then also strategically with the real estate that they had. And
Yep.
like, you know, they weren't shouting from the rooftops what they did, but they backed it in a big way. And ultimately, that is the diocese. So very, very thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We're,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the podcast episode here, and I, you know, thank you for coming in and being able to record this episode with us. It's awesome to hear about the great success you've had, the work you're doing in the community, and, you know, nationally, all the different companies and partners that you've worked with. But just kudos to you, and thank you for being a great representation of what it means to be an alum of this school.
Oh, hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.